We have some breaking news here on the homeless left. It looks as if Tulsi Gabbard is confirmed. The official announcement doesn't look like it's happened, but we do know that the Senate has voted 52 to 46. So this activates her as the confirmation vote. So she's 100% ready to be confirmed. So we'll see when that actual confirmation happens. But I want to look at some of the stuff that's happened because we've seen what happened at the vote. So first, let's just see that this thing actually did happen. So this is the one we got the news, and then I want to get into the Bernie stuff because that is irritating as.
Yep, that's why we're the homeless left. But
that's
yeah,
exactly why we're the homeless left. Let's look at the actual breaking. Let me do the shared screen. It always takes me a extra second here, but we got this. Okay, here it is. This is the actual breaking news here. Let me bring that up. Here it is. Okay. So, yes, it says the Senate just voted 52 to 46 to invoke culture and activate Tulsi Gabbard to confirm the vote. This is based on this vote. And so this just happened. I guess it was yesterday. She is 100% confirmed. Any moment we should have a new director of national intelligence. So I guess you guys are wondering what happened with those other 46. I wonder if anybody voted on that 46 that might have had a very strange take that maybe some people are saying doesn't really look that good. And we mentioned Bernie Sanders. Jay, what did you hear about Bernie Sanders? I'm gonna put this up now, but you sent this to me, and it makes me effing livid. Can you tell our viewers what's going on with Bernie in this vote?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is Bernie voted to confirm Marco Rubio. But he wouldn't vote to confirm Tulsi Gabbard. Now, with Tulsi Gabbard, it's like the ultimate ice pick to the back, right? Because Tulsi literally resigned from her position as, vice chairman of the DNC at the time, because she wanted to draw attention to the fact that they were cheating on behalf of Hillary Clinton during the primary. So how are you gonna stab this person in the back? And while Tulsi may not be perfect, like she has done a little bit of flip-flopping on the Zionism issue, sometimes she does sound a little bit a little bit extreme, in my opinion, when it comes to talking about jihadists and Islam. However, she's miles ahead better than anybody else you could ask for Trump to nominate in this position. Like, if Jill Stein was president, okay, maybe we could have gotten someone better into that position. But with Trump as president, who are we going to possibly get who could be better than Tulsi Gabbard in this position? And for Bernie to vote to confirm Marco Rubio, yet not give his vote to Tulsi Gabbard, it's absolutely insane. And, shout out to Aaron Mate. He was actually the one who pointed this out, the double standard over here. So kind of stole that a little bit from him. But it's amazing that he would, be so hypocritical.
Yeah, and so this was being pointed out by a lot. Yeah, and it looks like Wall Street Apes has also said, look, Bernie Sanders is just voted no. This is on record. We can see it. He knows we can see it. And he knows the internet doesn't go away. It's forever. And we have this is a clip, and I'm glad if you guys don't know this, this is literally when Tulsi made a statement by stepping down as vice chair to get behind Bernie, which was the right thing to do. And the fact that he's not eternally grateful for that really does, as Wall Street Ape says, the lack of morals from Bernie is beyond comprehension. I want to play this so people can see that this actually happened. This is the same Tulsi Gabbard. By the way, guys, she's the same Tulsi who stood up to Kamala Harris and got her off that freaking stage. She was the first one out in that 2020 election because Tulsi just was the only one that could look her in the eye and say, you screwed California. You are a horrible person. Everything you've done is to hurt people. And she had no back. She had nothing to say back, and she was out the next day. And
Tulsi
that did that.
Tulsi
Yes,
actually tore her a new one and pointed out her record with black people in California
that's right.
because she was running as the representative of black people in the presidential race. However, she literally argued to keep people in jail for the free labor when she was attorney general in California. She prosecuted single mothers working multiple jobs over truancy. She kept people in jail for nonviolent crimes, and Tulsi was the one to point that out. So
Absolutely.
she's great on a lot of issues. And while I may have one or two issues with her, I think maybe she's done a little bit of flip-flopping. Overall, we're not going to get anyone better than her in this position, especially from Trump. So
Yeah. Well, so people that never saw this, let's see
Mhm.
that sincere moral stance she took to step
Mhm.
down on behalf of what was right at the time. And at the time, it
Mhm.
was the right thing to do. And we, as much as we regret what happened later, we were on the right side of history getting Bernie's back. And she led the way for a lot of people who saw this back then. So this is just a reminder to people. This actually happened.
Mhm.
As a vice chair of the DNC, I'm required to stay neutral in Democratic primaries, but I cannot remain neutral any longer. The stakes are just too high. That's why today I'm endorsing Senator Bernie Sanders to be our next president and commander-in-chief of the United States. We need a commander-in-chief who has foresight, who exercises good judgment, and who understands the need for a robust foreign policy which defends the safety and security of the American people, and who will not waste precious lives and money on interventionist wars of regime change. Such counterproductive wars undermine our national security and economic prosperity. As these elections continue across the country, the American people are faced with a very clear choice. We can elect a president who will lead us into more interventionist wars of regime change, or we can elect a president who will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. It's with this clear choice in mind that I'm resigning as vice chair of the DNC so that I can strongly support Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And now I ask you, stand with me and support Bernie Sanders.
And the saddest thing about that is she was going to get confirmed anyway. So it's like you just went on record to stab this person in the back who went out of her way and gave up power and literally got kicked out of the party over this moral stance she took to defend you. So crazy, man.
I'm watching this, Jay, and it's bringing like I'm getting emotional. I'm like my eyes are tearing up, and I'm thinking this is like this alternate universe that we
Mm,
almost had, and for some reason it was taken from us for whatever reason. A lot of us think that Bernie intentionally took it from us, but maybe there was a time in 2016 where he was going about it in an honest way, and then he got captured. We don't know. I don't know. It's hard to pin where the psyop started, but regardless of where that psyop started, here's this woman saying, "I'm going to step down and get behind what's right," and this could have been the MAHA or the whatever you call it today, the MAGA MAHA, the alignment of different of a
mhm,
versatile group of people that are saying enough of the deep state, enough of the people of the oligarchy. That was the messaging from Bernie. He said we were taking on all these things, and it
mhm,
never happened. And Tulsi sitting there in that blue jacket, representing the blue side at the time, there was still
mhm,
hope that we could do it from that party the way Trump
mhm,
has, I guess, in a way, a lot better than Bernie ever did or ever could have, or for whatever reason, is she's now in the other side of it. And the fact that you're in, yeah, it's insane that when you understand that historical context, that to have Bernie Sanders today do this to
mhm.
her, we are in, this is worse than Bizarro World.
Yeah.
This is like some like, I don't know, ritualistic, like fu. I don't know what
Mhm.
is going on here,
The
but it
the
is
Demo-
hard to watch.
the Democrats are such a polarized party. It's insane. And this is just another example of that. I don't know if you saw, there was a viral clip going around yesterday of a doctor in a hospital who was going off on a patient who had a MAGA hat on,
Mm,
saying that she would not help the patient because he had a MAGA hat on. I saw the story, a few months ago when the hurricane hit North Carolina, and there was a person in FEMA who was ordering people out on the ground to skip over houses that had MAGA signs in front of them. I'm like, what country is this like that we're living in? Like, how can you look at your fellow Americans and just label them as an enemy just because they have a difference in political opinion? And I didn't vote for Trump. I don't support Trump. I criticize Trump on all the things he does wrong, but I'm not going to look at a fellow American and write them off and start calling them racist and all these names just because they have a difference in political opinion than me. This is such a toxic conversation right now that's happening from the left, where they're pretending that anybody who isn't 100% aligned with everything they have, or who won't vote for the people they tell them to vote for, is the enemy. And you have the right to treat them as less than people. Think about it. A doctor is denying a patient the right to be helped and receive medical help because of a political opinion. Like, what are we doing here? Like what is going on, man?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, they're the majority. Well, not the majority of the country, but they're the biggest political party right now. So you're telling me that you want to write off the people who have the most support at the moment. Like, you want to write off the biggest chunk of the country. Now, the biggest chunk is actually independents, but there's no single independent that everyone is unified around. But comparing the Republicans and Democrats, the Republicans simply have more support. How can you say that you're not going to interact with or help or deal with anyone who supports the most popular party in the country? Like, this is not how we bridge the gap. This is not how we convince people from that side to come back like to some sanity. All you're going to do is make them double down.
Because it's not about convincing them to come back.
No,
it's about
it's
the
not.
war, the internal warfare.
Mhm.
It's about the attacking your neighbor. That's been the game plan the whole way. From Hillary Clinton calling half the country deplorables to this, you're a domestic terrorist if you showed up to January 6th. Can we go back and look at one of the people that helped implement this illogical thinking back during COVID? I just found this clip. If you guys remember this. This is Jimmy Kimmel talking about this exact issue, Jay, during COVID, saying, we will not treat you if you're having a heart attack, and if an unvaccinated person is having a heart attack and a vaccinated person is having a heart attack, F you, unvaccinated person, you can roll over and die. We're going to treat the vaccinated person. And the whole audience, and this is at the El Capitan on Hollywood Boulevard. This is in 2021. The whole audience cheers. You guys don't believe me? This happened. Here it is.
I hope you had a relaxing Labor Day. It was not a fun Labor Day weekend COVID-wise. The number of new cases is up more than 300% from a year ago. Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Let's just take a second with that. If you guys have seen this before, you're probably just as irritated and furious about this. If you haven't seen this is the first time, you're probably in shock right now. But this happened. Nobody apologized for this. And you heard that audience going crazy at the end as if that was some punchline, an attack on half the country. And I say half the country because what did vaccinated even mean? Or unvaccinated even mean? Once you had to do 3, then 4, then 5. If you weren't up to date, you were unvaccinated. So more and more, like you said, it starts to become a majority of people that were not okay with this, and yet they're still being bullied and smeared and jokes made about them, and nobody apologized to this. This is exactly what you're talking about, Jay. So this was set. This precedent was set long ago, and now that I'm looking at it, that was actually probably 2022, and he was talking about it was the second winter after COVID. So the shit didn't even work the first time. They're like, we have to keep doing the thing that doesn't work and keep shaming people that aren't on board with this ridiculous psycho thing, because it's psychotic to keep doing the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome, which we all know. Oh my God, I'm getting so angry. But you told me this about the Dr. J, and I was thinking of Jimmy Kimmel, and I want you guys to see this has been happening for a long, long time, and nobody has to account for it for some reason.
Yep. And what he's writing off as simply horse goo is a Nobel Prize winning medicine for its application in people. Like not for its application in animals, it's for its application in people. Now, granted, it was for something different than COVID, but medications get repurposed all the time. They create a medication for one thing, then they find out it treats something else, so they repurpose it. But during COVID, you couldn't talk about this because there was a plan that the globalists and the elites all already had set up, and ivermectin would have interfered with those plans. So they just dismissed it as horse paste. And literally to this day, like people, when I bring up the fact that ivermectin probably could have saved, a lot of lives and helped some people still call me a conspiracy theorist and ask me, why am I promoting horse medicine and veterinary medicine? So it's like, they do such a good job with propaganda. Like still, even though mainstream media is getting less popular, people, I guess, some people still latch on to the ideas that they want to identify with because it's intellectually lazy. It means you don't have to go out there, do a little bit of research and realize that there were 2 states in India, Uttar Pradesh and like another one, and they were side by side. They both had COVID outbreaks. The state that used ivermectin had nearly 0 deaths, and the state that did not use ivermectin had thousands of deaths. Like these are 2 states side by side. And I remember reading the story, and that was when I lost a significant amount of faith, like in the medical establishment. Before that, I would take most of the things they said, like as gospel. When I saw that play out in real time, that was across the line for me. And I'm glad you brought that clip up because Matt, it actually got worse than that, man. I remember seeing a poll that asked people, would you support taking away children from unvaccinated parents? And among Democrats, it was like 30% of Democrats supported taking away the kids of unvaccinated children. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, you have my respect for sticking it out in California, because before the pandemic, I knew that I was going to leave Florida eventually. I wasn't sure where I was going to go, and California was pretty high on my list. And when I saw how things played out during the pandemic, I'm like, you know what? I love Cali. A lot of great things about Cali. Cali people are cool as shit from my experience with them. But I don't think I want to go somewhere where people want to deny me medical service and threaten to take away my children if they disagree, with my political opinions. So yeah, I chose Texas, and it's a good move. I love Austin.
Yeah, that's great. I'm jealous of you in Austin. In fact, there's a whole movement here in Hollywood for the people that are sick of woke Hollywood. They're moving filmmaking and independent filmmaking to Hollywood, and they got some A-listers involved in this move, and they're willing to take massive pay cuts to do it. We're seeing people like Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson.
To go where? To here to Austin?
Absolutely. It's happening right now. We'll talk more about it. Man, it's going down, man. They're saying we're sick of woke Hollywood. We're sick of, and these are people we've known have stood up to stuff here and there. I love a lot of stuff Woody Harrelson's been doing. I know Matthew McConaughey has had some back and forth on some stuff. We always bring him up because he was the guy that literally played the guy that in the movie of Dallas Buyers Club. Matthew McConaughey was taking on Anthony Fauci in that film. There's no character playing Anthony Fauci, but he was taking on the system that Fauci at the time had rigged and was killing people with this horrible, horrible drug called ACT. There's a whole movie about it. Matthew McConaughey wins an Academy Award for it. We wish that he could have connected the dots sooner and gotten out in front and said, hey, wait a minute, I was in the movie. You remember you guys gave me an award for playing this character and Fauci was the bad guy? Why are we listening to this guy? So he didn't do that right away, but I know that since then he has had a little bit of a, maybe I got that wrong. But overall, just getting a lot of stuff wrong is because we're captured, because they play us against each other. There's a lot of people in Hollywood sick of it. But you talk about California, it was a very hard place to be in. I stuck it out. Not many people, not everybody did. There was people that got the hell out. And the people that were here that it's that will still till this day tell you there was no problem, tell you that we did everything right. Those are the people that are, and they're still in the industry. They're still working in the industry here. These are the people that Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey want to get the hell away from, because they have no reflection. They will still look at what Jimmy Kimmel does in that clip and say, "Oh yeah, that was hey, we were dealing with a lot at the time, or we knew what we knew at the time, and that's all." And they have no critical thinking skills whatsoever. Meanwhile, there are people dying, people like schools getting shut down, children getting screwed up, small businesses gone, people getting all sorts of injuries from a thing they never wanted, and they were duped into taking it.
And
This is so long, and California will never recover from this because they will never admit that they got it wrong.
Yeah. The lockdowns had led to the closure of, I believe I saw a statistic that said 40% of Black-owned businesses, like small shops, like across the country, because we shut down the country for so long. And, this would have been happening more, in Democratic states, because the lockdowns went on for so much longer in those states. So it's like the people who the Democratic Party claims to protect, sometimes they wind up hurting the most. So, it's a real shame, man. It's a real shame. And the lack of reflection, even with all the data that's coming out now, I'm seeing study after study, wait, are we on YouTube right now?
We are. We'll throw it off at the end, but it's okay. We can we figured out there's a language maneuver we can do and say the same. So whatever. It's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the COVID shots are safe and effective, but there are studies.
Yes.
The studies. There are some recent studies coming out of Japan and Europe that say maybe there are a couple more unintended consequences than we realize. And I believe one study had even claimed that, I know one study coming out of Japan recently just proved that the more COVID shots you took, the more likely you were to actually catch COVID. And, it didn't ultimately, even though there may have been some short-term protection, it didn't give you long-term protection against severe disease. So, I don't know, man. But no, they're still safe and effective, though, because YouTube wants us to say that. So, yeah.
Well, let's be clear. The Japan you're just reporting on what
I'm just reporting
Japan
what
study
Japan
said.
said.
This isn't what Jay is saying. This is what Matt is saying. We're just telling people out there this is what they're doing in Japan.
That's right.
Probably incorrect. Probably they don't know what they're talking about, but it is happening, and we just
go get your boosters. Go get those boosters, guys. We're on what, number 11 or 12 now, right? I lost count. Somewhere up there.
I'm not. It's funny we can say that, but there are people here in Hollywood, man. I'm telling you, they have had like 10 of them. I know them personally, and they're not okay health wise. They're not okay. I'm shocked that some of them are still able to form sentences and get out of bed. But it's there's not many days that they're doing well at one time. I'm telling you, it's really, really scary to see what people will do when they've been hijacked, and the ego to not admit. It's insane. I'm going to say one thing about because we talk about Trump derangement syndrome. We talk about COVIDian mindset. These are very similar mindsets. Yeah, it's mass formation psychosis, right? So we talk about these symptoms of this problem that kind of takes your brain over. And the COVID stuff is the worst. It's actually worse than Trump derangement syndrome, because Trump derangement syndrome, there are people who can reflect on it years later and say, you know what, I was captured. I admit it. I'm not saying everybody will, but there's a handful of people that were able to do that, and I see them now. They're actually doing it now. The people are like, oh my God, I fell for that for so long. I had it. I had Trump derangement syndrome. With COVID, you could admit you were captured, but if you are in the medical community, and this gets back to your original point about the doctors and how we don't trust these doctors anymore, because they should know better now. They should know they made those mistakes, whether it was on purpose or an accident. They got it wrong. And the fact that they're not willing to admit it means it's the worst thing you can do right now, because it's worse than ego. We're talking about you being guilty of hurting people because you were in a position of power. So it's worse than the Trump derangement syndrome. Trump derangement syndrome is just about sharing memes about why you should vote for Hillary or why you should vote for Biden or Harris. But when you're talking about telling people as a medical professional, here's this thing is safe and effective, and then you bring harm to them, there is no amount of time that can pass where you're going to vocally say, you know what, we got that wrong. You're going to double down as if your life depended on it, because it does. Because otherwise, you'd be going to prison. So
Yeah.
that's why we'll never see that from the medical community itself.
I don't want to say never, but one of the scariest parts about that situation is that the it's partly the doctor's fault, but it's not all the doctor's fault, because they're literally putting their careers at risk, by taking, by telling the truth here, because a lot of these hospitals that they work for, are firing them and reprimanding them if they, deviate from the safe and effective narrative. So, at some point, if you take your Hippocratic oath seriously, then you should be trying to keep up with actual data and actual research coming out. And if there are concerns, you should at least be mentioning those concerns to people and be like, and tell people, well, this is what I'm supposed to say. This is what they say the evidence leans towards. But personally, I have seen some other data that may give me a little bit of pause. So maybe I'll give you the information and then you decide what to do with it, but at least present both sides, and don't just keep going on with this narrative that safe and effective. Any questions, you're crazy, you're a conspiracy theorist, and it's either this or horse paste. So hopefully they can get out of that, because I'm empathetic to them to an extent, because they do spend a lot of time in school. They rack up a lot of medical debt to go into their careers. They have families, they have their own lives, and they're going to be in a very tough position by taking this moral stand. And that's why, for people that do have the courage to do it, I give them all the credit in the world. Peter McCullough, Robert Malone, there's so many Pierre Corey. There's a good amount of doctors who have spoken out, but in the grand scheme of things, we're talking about what, like less than 10%, like of the whole field. So I'm hoping with RFK coming in, maybe we'll see a little bit of a change, but I'm not even entirely sure how much he's going to be able to do, because there's so many people around him who are directly invested in mRNA. And in my opinion, he has made a little bit of a pivot from talking about the mRNA shots to now talking about only food safety and environmental stuff. And both of those issues are important. However, if you look at the dramatic increase in excess death rates that we've seen over the past few years and where all the money is going right now, while the food issue is definitely important, I'm very passionate about it, I still think we have to address this mRNA situation. So I'm hoping that he'll be able to do the right thing there. And I know I'll be pressuring him either way. And this is coming from someone who supported RFK. You know me, Matt. That was the way we originally connected. I was the RFK supporter who had to come on and defend his insane Israel stance and talk about why I supported him. So
that's right.
I'm willing to criticize even people who I campaigned for and went hard for. And if everyone gets to that place, I guarantee you we can see real progress. Be willing to criticize 100%. The people you support.
100%. It's a great tactic, and it means you can be consistent and have principles and not be all over the place. But we point out the stuff when someone gets it right, we point it out, even if it's someone we don't like. So it works the other way too. If somebody we don't like gets something right, we should point that out. Somebody we do like gets something wrong, we point that out. That's consistency. That's what's called having principle, which is what we like to do here. So I appreciate you doing that, Jay. And Craig Pasta does the same, and he was also huge RFK Jr. He goes even further. He says, you know what? No matter what RFK Jr. is able to do in there, the next guy's gonna undo it anyway. So I don't know if you thought that far ahead.
We don't know though. We don't know, because you remember you say this all the time, Matt. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So if he gets in there and he's able to expose, some of the stuff about vaccines, and just to be clear, I actually have to do this research because I have a daughter on the way right now. And I realized when I was a kid, I took, I think I took like maybe 10, 11 shots or something like that. And now the schedule is up to like 72.
72.
So there are some which I do think people need to get, like polio, MMR. Like I do think it's probably a good idea to get some of those, but I really do want to take a look at the ingredient list and see, well, how many heavy metals,
Do it.
we have in here? Is there any way I can get any of these shots without the heavy metals? So
Hey,
if he's able to at least push for more transparency and at least point out that there are issues, I do think we have maybe, 5% of doctors, estimate 5% of doctors who were starting to wake up on that issue. If RFK puts it out, maybe we could get that number up to 40, 50% who were starting to see, well, okay, I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm pro-vaccine that doesn't have heavy metals in it. Like maybe we can get more people into that camp.
Yeah.
And if someone else comes in after that and tries to reverse the stuff, by that time there will be broad enough support where you can have like some kind of legal challenges and some kind of organized resistance. Because right now, most of the people who are really resisting are like on the fringe. But I do think once a good amount of them see it, they won't be able to unsee it. So if he can at least do that, I'll take the wins wherever he can get them.